Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Rich Dotson, here with my fellow nerds, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And Garrett Price.
How's it going?
It's going well, really well, because we're getting so close to real football. About 10 days, around 10 days. About 8 days when this podcast comes out, right?
Well.
Which would mean 9 days.
Very good math.
Yeah, well, dude, arithmetic is my strong suit.
Absolutely.
10 minus 1 is 9.
I thought it was 8.
9 minus 1 is 8.
There you go.
That, my friends, is called arithmetic.
Mathematics.
Yeah, well, or arithmetic.
Or arithmetic.
Or mathematics.
Either way.
Both.
I don't even need this abacus either. Just did it on my head. No fingers, no toes.
That's
Look
astonishing.
At me. 10% genius. IQ of about 16.
The other what's the other 90%?
Like a lot of fantasy football stuff up there. Got a little baseball information. Baker Mayfield. Got a little of that up in there too.
Yeah. What about some World War II, right? A little bit of World War I.
Dude, know a lot about World War I. Yeah. Dan Carlin know a lot about the Khans, Genghis Khan. Yeah, it's all up there. Roman history, that's in there too. I like history. It's nice.
Some aqueducts and whatnot.
Yeah, real nice.
Yeah, the Mighty
nice.
Ducks.
Yeah, Flying V. So today we're talking.
Quack.
We figured as we get to the season, what a better way, because next week's our bold prediction episode. Right?
So bold.
Gonna bust out those balls. Oh, yeah. Shine them up. Give you guys some predictions. Probably be talking some Jerick McKinnon. Just a little foresight. Just a little bit.
Foresight, right?
Yeah.
All right, I was just making sure.
Yeah,
Keep it clean here, Rich.
Yeah, for sure.
I saw that glint in your eye.
This isn't the Nerd Herd episode.
No, not yet. So today we're going to be answering some listeners' questions to help them get ready for the season. On the Nerd Herd episode, we're talking about what's going on in the NFL, because there's a lot going on. Leonard Fournette getting cut, Joe Mixon getting a new deal, what's happening with Alvin Kamara, all that we're going to be discussing on the Nerd Herd episode, because now we got to get all these listener questions. But before we do, let's have a quick word from our sponsor, DynastyOwner.com. That's right. We're running out of time, peeps, to jump on there and join DynastyOwner.com. If you want an opportunity to play Dynasty Fantasy Football in a whole new way, go to DynastyOwner.com/nerds, and you too can play Dynasty Fantasy Football using actual NFL salaries. That's right. They are so unique. They have a patent on this format that where you can play using an NFL salary cap, and you draft your team using NFL salaries. So you can fill up your team the best of your ability using contracts. Garrett, you just had a draft.
I did.
How'd it go?
I think I did fantastic.
You probably did fantastic. So if you want to be like Garrett and be fantastic, well, get to DynastyOwner.com/nerds, and you can join the league today. And make sure once you get in there, you can email the commish and say you want to get into a Nerd Herd League so you can play against fellow Dynasty Nerd listeners. So check them out today, DynastyOwner.com/nerds. Play Dynasty Fantasy Football using actual NFL salaries, where you're the coach, you're the owner, you're the GM, you are the shot caller and the baller. I don't know the rest of the words.
I'm baller, high roller, baby.
I have no idea what you're saying.
That's a different song than what you were talking about.
Yeah, I was
Chingy,
thinking,
man.
Want to be a shot call? A
baller.
Shot
That
call.
was who sang that?
I don't remember.
Begins with a J.
Wish I was a baller.
No,
That one?
No.
that's too short.
Want to be a baller, shot caller.
Oh,
20-inch rims on the Impala. That's the other part I was trying to think of.
It's a lot of different songs.
Man, getting older is not fun. You start forgetting a lot more stuff. But no, I don't forget ever. That's Dynasty Fantasy Football. Garrett, are you ready to give us some listener questions
Let's do it.
so we can give the listeners answers? I hope it has to do with arithmetic, because obviously I know what I'm talking
Clearly, you'll be cuts above the rest in that
about.
department.
Yes. Garrett,
All right.
first question off the board is...
Let's start off. Let's warm up. Get a little softball.
We'll get a little loose.
Yeah. A little appetizer. A little something to wet your
My
whistle.
tongue got loose. I'm like, look good loose.
A little.
I'm sorry, I got a lisp sometimes.
Nathan Gibbs asks, what's your advice for a team that's stuck in the middle year after year?
Well, this is easy to answer. First thing you need is a Dynasty GM tool, because that's going to tell you if you're really stuck in the middle. And once you realize that, when you're stuck in the middle year after year? Matt, Garrett, this is a very simple answer. You blow that bad boy up. You take it, you throw a couple can grenades on it, put some TNT on it as well, like that fuse, and you blow it up. All assets must go. Full reblowed.
Reblowed.
Yeah, reblowed. Reblow it. Because once you blow it one time,
You're going to need to blow it again.
just to make sure you get every drop of talent out of that roster. Because you need young players and draft capital.
Was it the grenade or the TNT that reblew it? Which one went first?
I don't know. You don't know. It all depends about the fuse. You know, you got one of these long little fuses. It takes, like you see an Acme fuse, it takes like 20 seconds to go by. You pull the clip out of the grenade. Who knows?
Right.
Well, the pin, not the clip.
Right.
I'm all over the place.
You don't know a lot about grenades, I can tell.
Well, never threw a grenade before.
Me neither. And I'm just joking.
If I saw a grenade, I would actually go the opposite way of it and not inspect it. So I think the biggest problem when you have a middle of the road team, say you have a guy like DJ Moore and like Joe Mixon on the team, for example. You're like, I got to keep these guys. They're young. No. You can't do that because how are you going to get any more assets?
Right.
Those are your only good assets. So I know you want to build around young players, but you need to grab a lot of up-and-coming players. So DJ Moore and a guy like Joe Mixon are established. So you need to get guys that aren't yet established and coming on up. So guys like Preston Williams, Darius Slayton, to go with a whole bunch of draft picks.
Right.
A running back like DJ Dallas that you like as a throw-in on top of a whole bunch of draft picks. Draft picks, because the multiple draft picks are going to put you in the best position to get more DJ Moore, more Joe Mixon.
Right, and obviously those are the established guys. Some of the older guys, you should obviously just unload for whatever you can get. Any kind of draft pick compensation you can get. But like you said, well-established guys, you want to get a combo of a young and up-and-coming guy and draft picks.
The nice part about the GM tool is you'll be able to see exactly where you're at and how far off, because sometimes a team that's right there year after year just needs to stop being so stingy and finally get that one player that will put them over the top. So that's the nice part about the GM tool is I think you're right. 9 times out of 10, your team probably isn't that good and you just need to blow it up. But sometimes, if you're in a super flex league and you got Lamar, but you just don't have that second quarterback and that's been killing you all season long, maybe it might be the time to finally pay up and, all right, I'm going to try to get Dak. Like I'm going to use, I have a couple first, I have, different things. I'm going to try to get Dak. That's not always the case, but sometimes you might just be a piece away and you need to stop being so stingy and hoarding all these draft picks and finally utilize them on some good players.
And we've said it before a bunch of times. If you are in that particular, circumstance or predicament, it's okay to lose a trade and give up more than the GM tool or more than your intuition would say in order to make your starting lineup better. Because that will move you closer to a championship than holding on to those what ifs in the future. And because those what ifs can go either way, you know what I mean? And sometimes it's you got to overpay to get the sure thing now in order to kind of push yourself over that edge into contention.
Yeah, either you're rebuilding or you're going for the ship. And when you're going for the ship, you shouldn't be afraid to dispose of all your draft picks.
That's what you said. You have a couple teams where you literally have I have a fourth 3 years from now. That's all I have left.
Yeah, I have no, just even get extra depth, like giving up a second next year for OJ Howard or a 2022 second to get OJ Howard. Just grabbing depth as well. Or guys I think might have value down the road. That are younger assets as well. But in one league, I gave away all my draft picks for the next 2 years, including this year, just because my team is ready to win, and I want to make sure I have the depth, definitely with what's going on with COVID. So to me, it's always two ways to look at it. Either you're going in or you're rebuilding. Either you're trying to win or you're rebuilding. And if you feel like you can win, maybe like the GM says you're the fourth best team, but you feel like you still have a shot. So it doesn't mean you necessarily have to have the best team, but you feel like your team's for sure going to make the playoffs. You can get in, and you can go for the title. And then maybe if you feel like it's close, you do get in the playoffs and you're one and done, then you're like, okay, this offseason it's time to rock and blow it up. And week ones, the first couple weeks of the season is a great time to blow up your team because that's the time where you actually get draft picks. It's like early in the year, you can start getting these 21 draft picks, and the 21 class is going to be fantastic. Right now, in the offseason, people just had a rookie draft. People are still a little bit less tentative to give away a 21 first or a 21 second. But once that season starts and somebody actually has an injury on their roster or somebody has to hold out for the season or they're going to miss a couple weeks, it's way easier to move a player, definitely an older player, to get that 21 first because now people are laser focused on
winning.
Winning.
It's actually within their sights. Yep.
Yep, absolutely. All right, moving on to our next question. Matt Conway asks, it's a long question, but more or less discuss your strategy for taxi squads. You know, sometimes you draft a lot of rookies and you're wanting to put some of them on there, but you're worried about, you know, at some point I'm probably going to want to move them up. What kind of strategy do you guys use with your taxi squads? How does all of that work in your leagues?
So all the leagues that Rich and I are in, we basically have a 2-year taxi squad. So, you know, you obviously have to worry about your down the road team and if you're going to be able to squeeze all these assets onto your team. But it would never hinder me in as far as drafting too many players, because I'll find a way to either move somebody off my active roster. There's always a couple of guys at the bottom of my roster that they're just kind of high upside, kind of shot in the dark kind of guys that I know I can cut if I need to bring somebody off my taxi squad. So like I said, I've never come to the point where I've had a restriction as far as taking too many draft picks in a trade or anything like that, thinking I can't get them on my roster at some point.
Yeah, taxi squad has to be unlimited in my eyes. Whatever MFL or whatever they let you do, you have to let it be unlimited, because otherwise you're hindering trades. Like, I can't make that trade for rookie picks. I have no room in my taxi squad. It's silly. You know what I mean? You shouldn't put a cap on how many like draft picks you could trade for, because all that's going to do is help free agency down the road, because they can't bring them all up on their roster,
right, or
promote more trading, because you're going to trade for some of those rookies on there. And I'm with Matt. I love to have guys on my roster that I could bring up, bring down, like running backs. You know, I like the 2-year window because you can play with it, right?
Right.
And to bring a guy up, usually you have to cut somebody.
Yeah, you can play with it, and you can plan ahead. That's why I love the 2-year rule as well. You know, you can. I always have like a kind of in the back of my head, hey, at the end of this year, I'm going to have to bring at least 4 guys off my taxi squad, because these guys are locks, and up to maybe 7 or 8, depending on if a couple of these guys show a little this year. And where am I going to be able to do that? How am I going to be able to do that? Am I going to have to unload some of these vets just so I can bring these guys up next year? That's kind of always how my mind is working and percolating as far as between my taxi squad and my regular roster.
And there's strategy there too. You have a guy like Jonathan Taylor who might be on your active roster, and then all of a sudden there's a good waiver wire, but you have nobody else to cut. You could put him back down on the taxi squad, right, for a week or 2 to see how that player plans out. And the reason it is 2 years, by the way, is because you need to let a player develop. Again, you just can't have all these draft picks and force them onto somebody's roster. It's just not fair to let them just sit there, wait to see how they pan out, when most players take, honestly, about 2 years to develop. So if you should know what you have within 2 years, right, of a taxi squad. One of my favorite things to do here, if you still play with kickers in your league, is the Matt O'Hara strategy here, where you draft a kicker every year. That way you can you're not over rostering on your roster 2 kickers. You have 1 active kicker, and the other one's a rookie that you could bring up for that 1 bye week and then put him right back down afterwards.
Yeah, and a lot of times, you know, obviously we have 6-round rookie drafts. So by the time the 6th round comes in our drafts, the well is pretty much dried up. So occasionally, I don't advocate it all the time for everyone, but my rosters tend to be pretty full. So that's why I started doing that move a few years back, just drafting a kicker here and there, just so I wouldn't have to cut somebody and move somebody up and down just for a kicker's bye week, which I thought was pretty silly.
Do any of your guys' leagues have limitations on the taxi squad as far as like once you bring somebody up, you can't, demote them once again?
Ours have always been fluid.
Okay.
As far as long as you're within that 2-year realm, you're a rookie or a second-year player, you can bring them up and put them down as many times as you want.
I get real politician like when I get into a league, and they're like,
I remember you talking about in the one league, yeah.
And they're like, hey, we're going to put a limit of like 7 taxi squads, and I go in the same rant. I'm like, no, why? Like, what are you doing? Like, then we're literally limited trades here. Like, I'm never going to trade for rookie picks because I can't. What's the point? Where am I going to put them? I don't have a taxi squad. We've been playing Dynasty, Matt, for going on 17 years, and we involved before there was any Dynasty websites and before there was MFL or anything like that.
Right, we were tracking them on spreadsheets and stuff like that.
So we use that time to see out what's the best way to. Now, again, it's not the best way, but what we figured is at least a standard way to play Dynasty to make it more fun, to promote trades. Again, that's why we do the 30-man rosters, because that way the free agency is really limited, and everything has to be done via trade, essentially. If you want to make your roster, you have to do via trade or through the draft. So the unlimited rookie spots give you plenty of draft picks to draft. Again, if you want to blow up your team, you're trying to acquire as many draft picks as possible. So if you're training with multiple teams, you get to each team's draft class. Say you have a 5-round rookie draft, and you get 4 teams draft class on top of yours. You're talking about 24 players that you can draft in just one draft.
Right.
So you shouldn't be limited there, where you have to then choose and decide who you can draft and what's not. It's silly. It doesn't work. It takes fun out of the league, and it promotes less trade-in. And trade-in's why we play. It's a huge part of Dynasty.
Absolutely.
Is trade-in.
And it makes the blow-up rebuild so much more difficult as well. If you can't acquire a ton of assets and just kind of load your team up for like 2 or 3 years in a row in the draft and sift through all that crap, like you got to be able to have all those guys in your taxi squad, bring them up as you need, bring them up, promote them, put them down, all that kind of stuff. There's got to be flexibility and fluidity to that taxi squad.
And it could cause conflict too, because if you have 12 rookies you got to bring up because of just a 1-year rule or something like that, like people are going to know they're not going to offer you as much because they know you have to bring these rookies up. Like,
absolutely.
dude, either that or you're going to cut them.
Yep.
What else is someone give you? I'll give you a 5th. And like, dude, he's worth a 3rd. It's
right.
like, no. So unlimited taxis, keep players there, let them develop 2 years, bring them up.
Bounce them up, down as much as you want.
So kind of sticking with the same theme of talking about rebuilds and taxi squads and all this kind of stuff, Fantasy Recall asks, when you enter a full rebuild and sell off the majority of your assets for youth and picks, how long do you expect to be in rebuild mode for before you'll be aggressive in making a push for the ship?
Usually 3 years. Going into my 3rd year is when I want to start like making that push towards the playoffs.
Right. And that's ideal. You know what I mean?
Ideal.
Ideally that you'd know, but at the same time, you have to see a couple of hits in those first couple of years to know that in that 3rd year you're going to be making the move. So you have to kind of let the team tell you more so than, hey, this is the golden rule. On the 3rd year, you're going to be competing. Because if you miss on 3 picks
sure.
in the first year of that rebuild, you're almost set back another year, and it's going to be closer to the 4th year before you're actually contending.
And I've seen plenty where it's only been a single year rebuild because they sold and bought assets at the right time.
Right.
And so, right before the trade deadline, they're acquiring tons of picks. And then when rookie fever sets in, they trade a lot of those picks for established players. And all of a sudden, their starting lineup looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of it has to do with, being smart about your maneuvering. Obviously, you're absolutely right, Matt. You're going to have to make sure you hit on a good majority of those to be able to have a quick turnaround. I think it's tough to say exactly it's going to be 2 years, it's going to be 3 years, it's going to be it's tough to say exactly what it's going to be. But chances are if you're entering your 4th season, 5th season, you've probably messed up a couple times down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of, and again, it's not just when you do the rebuild, it's not just draft picks you're acquiring. You're acquiring high upside guys, like a guy like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who's relatively cheap, who right now it could be arguably the number 1 receiver on the Philly with the Rager injury.
Yep.
So it's about making the right moves. And like I said earlier, acquiring players and draft picks. And what kind of players are you trying to acquire that offer upside if you already have the young guys? A guy like Jerick McKinnon, who offers you some running back stability, possibly there. Young, a guy like DJ Dallas who has an opportunity, Anthony McFarland in Pittsburgh. So this has some chance. But guys who were like 1st round picks last year, a guy like you trade for, hey, I'll give you DJ Moore, give me 2 1st round picks, 2 2nd round picks, give me Paris Campbell and JJ Arcega-Whiteside.
And it's being smart too about selling those 2 to 3 year window guys. Like, let's say hypothetically, we'll talk more about it later, the Leonard Fournette situation in Jacksonville. Now it's the argument is it Raquel Armstead? Is it Ozigbo? Chances are, could one of those guys hit? Anything can happen in fantasy football. But chances are, their starting running back is not on their team right now. You're not competing this year. If you have one of those guys on your team, sell them ASAP so that way your net gain will be much better long term, because even if they're okay this year, that doesn't do you any good.
Yeah, any spike you take advantage of it. When you're a bottom of the barrel team and you're in rebuild mode, any kind of spike in news you want to use the opportunity to sell, right? All of a sudden, Zigbo has no value. All of a sudden, now he went from having no value to 3rd round value. Raquel Armstrong went from having almost no value to maybe possibly 2nd round value to contenders. I mean, they had Leonard Fournette. So you have to jump on those kind of moments right there. A guy has a really good week 1, sell.
Absolutely.
So, and don't be afraid about the repercussions. Just get what you can. You can't be like, oh, it could get better. It could, but you're not in position to wait to see if it gets better.
You're always just looking for
worse.
net gain. You're always just looking for net gain.
100%. 100%.
Yep. All right. Can you guys, sorry, this is from Stevie Bear _12 asks, can you guys talk about how you value rookie draft picks versus current players? I like making rookie picks, but one guy in our league always trades away all his picks for current players and never has any picks in the draft.
I'm in multiple leagues where I always play my team, right? But I'm never afraid to trade my draft picks for proven players. Because it depends each league. I have a league where like some people just love rookie picks. So they're willing to give up good players for rookie picks. Anytime I can get rid of, like in our old league, I gave away all my picks for players. So it always depends, right? It all depends what you get. Can I get a Robert Woods, what I think is really good value, and a borderline wide receiver 1 for a first round pick? Because we talk about this all the time. There's only so many wide receiver 1s. Wide receiver 2s are undervalued because people think they're not valuable, but they're a top 24 fantasy wide receiver. That's hard to come by. So, and it's a catch-22, and you got to play it right because everybody's looking for the next great wide receiver, right? Everybody wants that Michael Thomas, that DJ Moore, that AJ Brown, right? And you can usually not, it's hard to trade for those guys. So the only way to really get those guys is to draft those guys. But at the same time, most of these draft picks, again, there's only a spot for 12 running back 1s. There's only a spot for 24 top, or 20 running back 1 and running back 2s. So the league is flooded with talent as it is. There's tons of good players in this league. So for these rookies to come in, they have to supplant somebody to get to that spot. So it's really hard. So to me, every league's a little bit different, but I will always take a good proven player, definitely they're younger, over draft picks anytime. Now, granted, it depends if I know it's going to be a top 3 pick.
Sure.
That differentiates. But once you start getting past that top 3 draft order, my the proven player over that draft pick starts to increase drastically for me personally. Like I want to try and get that proven guy. Like can I give up 2 first round picks, say before this deal for Joe Mixon and like a Devin Ozigbo or so, something on those lines, or an older running back, and get that proven guy? Yeah, because a lot of times it's addition by subtraction. Because like once you trade that player, what a lot of people don't realize is now you have to use that draft pick just to fill that position of the player you gave up. So you trade away a DJ Moore, a Joe Mixon. Well, now you need a receiver to replace DJ Moore, so that 1 draft pick's out the window already. So you need to keep going and add on to that to make it worthwhile to get go. So if I can get the proven player, I would love to get the proven player if it's a good guy. Hence why I always trade, hey, Jarvis Landry, underrated. Can I get him for a solid draft pick? Definitely when the value's down. That's what we do these buy, sell, trade shows to say, hey, this is where the value is. Use your draft capital. And we always use draft capital as comparison instead of player for player.
Right.
It's the easiest currency.
So me personally, you guys go next year. I like the proven player over the draft pick probably 7 times out of 10.
And for me, I'm not going to put a number on how many times out of 10 I like a draft pick over.
Give me a number.
No, I'm not going to give you a number because I think for me it depends on the team. It depends on, like you were saying, the league.
A lot of variables.
There's so obviously in a league where you're blowing it up, I value picks much more than players. Right. But in a league where I'm contending, I'm not at all afraid to give away my picks. I think you have to be, I guess. So to answer the question, I think you have to be fluid with it. I don't think you could fall in love and be that narrow-minded just to have one way or another. I think you have to diversify your thinking a little bit there and kind of actually even, deal to deal, you kind of almost have to diversify and think differently about things and just make sure that it's the end result is you're making your team better. You know what I mean? If somebody's offering you the moon for a guy that you think is a 1-year wonder type of guy, and you're contending, you might be able to get away without having the guy. You might still have to make the deal for the player. I mean, for the over the moon picks or whatever. So, just in order to have the long term success of your team. So it's very fluid, and it's really on a case by case basis for me.
Matt, overall, I'm in a very similar boat with you. I think you also have to understand your strengths and weaknesses as a fantasy player. If you do a lot of study, whether that's with analytics or film, and you have a really good hit rate on rookies, then I might be willing to gamble a little bit more on the rookie picks and get some upside. If you tank your rookie drafts every year, stop making rookie picks and trade for guys that you already know are talented.
And to piggyback off of that, I mean, there was years where I don't know what I was doing with the quarterback situation. It was early on in my dynasty years. I would draft, and everyone that I drafted, everyone that I liked, everyone that I saw, it just tanked.
Yeah.
So then I was like, screw it. I'm not drafting quarterbacks anymore. I'm just going to go out and buy them. Yep. So it might be position by position. Like if you just don't have an eye for that kind of talent when you're watching film, don't be afraid to go supplant.
Yeah.
Trade a draft pick that you would normally use on a quarterback and go get yourself a quarterback. Even if it's a little bit of an overpay of what you would have to pay in the draft. If it's a 1 QB league and you're giving up a high second round pick or something like that to get your guy that you're going to have for the next 7 years, just go out and do it. So it might depend on the position as well.
Mm-hmm. It's the right way to say it. It's how you should play Dynasty always. Never have a ground set of rules. Before it's like, hey, I build around young wide receivers. Now the high end of the draft, it's running backs. I'm not going to stick to that rule. Like, I'm only taking a young wide receiver in the first round. That's what I'm doing because I'm building around my first 3 rounds of receivers. Well, now with the running back supply and the way it is, I might lean running back early. So
right, that's fluid year to year. It seemed like 2 years ago, everyone was like fading running backs. The zero running back thing was the big thing, and now it's like you better get your running backs early because there's a ton of wide receiver depth, and you're still getting a great wide receiver late in startups compared to relatively before.
Everything changes.
Yep.
Everything. The same thing. You want to grab a good tight end. You had to get one of those top 5 tight ends before because there was no tight ends after the top 5. Now the tight end, we've seen such a growth at that position over the last year and a half that we've never seen in fantasy football, literally in the history of fantasy football, the depth at the tight end position. Where before you want to have once you got after that 5, 6 to 15 was the same. Well, that's not the case anymore. Now you have 1 through 4, 1 through 6, right around there. Well, the top 3.
Right.
But then you have 4 through 8 that are probably really close, and then 9 through 14 that are close.
Just more and more of them getting used in the passing game. The NFL as a whole will evolve, and it's copycat league. So once something catches on somewhere, it's eventually going to start leaking its way into all the other front offices and into all the other teams.
And that carries over everywhere, even into your startup draft. Like, again, okay, I'm drafting this, then this, then this. It's like, no, because you don't know how the draft board is going to play out. If there's value in front of your face, and if you drafted 4 wide receivers straight, but then the best player on the board by a long shot is a 5th wide receiver, you take that 5th wide receiver.
That's exactly what happened in this recent startup. We had a really cool startup that we just did with a lot of really, really smart guys in the industry. And that was where I was at. It was super flex league, took a quarterback in the first round, come around to the end of the second round, and running backs are going like crazy. And I thought, okay, the 3 picks in front of me, the 3 guys there, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb, one of those 3 will be back to me. 3 straight picks, it was those 3 guys. And then it, where running back goes, it falls off a cliff after that point. And so Devontae Adams was still on the board. And I was like, I got to take Devontae Adams. Comes around the turn. Nuke Hopkins is there. I got to take Nuke Hopkins. It comes back around. Amari Cooper's there. Like, I wasn't planning to go 0 RB. But when you have 3 wide receivers that are wide receiver 1s,
fall to you, and
you got to do what you got to do. And so I think you guys are both spot on. I think this is what we're all alluding to is, at the end of the day, you've got to do what you need to do to make your team better. If the person you're trading with super undervalues picks, then you probably should go after picks with that guy. If the guy that you're trading with super overvalues picks, don't trade him draft picks. It's going to be tough. So, or don't take draft picks from him. Yeah.
Right.
So it is a case by case basis, and it takes time. It's not something that you get. If this is your first year of Dynasty, it's going to take a little while to kind of figure out some of the ebbs and flows of how all of this works. But that's why we're here. That's why we do the podcast. That's why we have the GM tool, is to help you navigate those waters.
And hopefully you'll, like you said, with the GM tool, something like that can help you avoid the big misses.
Sure.
Which, Rich and I have both swung and missed on some pretty bad trades early on in our, Dynasty career. So, and that's how we learned, but hopefully people can learn from us and through our mistakes.
Anytime you force a situation, there's a better chance you're going to be in the wrong than you're going to be in the right. I mean, how many people this year, because they wanted a running back so bad, took Keyshawn Vaughn over Michael Pittman Jr., over Brian Edwards, over a Denzel Mims, over a T. Higgins, just because they needed a running back. And now you're drafting because of need instead of best player, when you don't realize if you would have just taken, for example, a Brian Edwards, here we are 2 months later, you can trade Brian Edwards for a running back.
For the record, I don't think Von's a bad player. He's just a knucklehead.
Fair.
Continue.
Fair. But
we moved them down. We moved both of those guys down.
And I did too.
But now you're in a position with these receivers, a guy who's showing up in camp like a Michael Pittman Jr., like Brian Edwards, whose value has absolutely skyrocketed.
Yep.
And a player that we loved. That now the reason you always take the best player available, like Garrett taking Amari Cooper, because now when that person's receiver goes down, he can get a much better running back that was on the board by trading away Amari Cooper, because now that the season started and you can offer Amari Cooper as a wide receiver 1, you can get a running back 1 that you missed that was like 2 spots higher previously in the draft. Same thing. Brian Edwards right now. There's leagues right now where Cam Akers went 6th, 7th. You can go trade Brian Edwards, who was taken probably 14th, 15th, and 16th, and trade him straight up for Cam Akers if you wanted to. I would make that move if somebody offered. If I had Cam Akers, somebody's like, "Hey, you want Brian Edwards for Cam Akers?" I'm like, "Yes, yes, I do."
Sure.
And now I was in the same boat. I had Cam Akers ranked higher than Brian Edwards in my rookie rankings, but today I would make that move. It's a fluid situation at all times.
Yep.
People's values peak and they drop. And just like the stock market, you have to pay close attention by being on Twitter, listening to podcasts, and finding those right angles to buy and right angles to sell. And that's how you build a powerhouse dynasty team. You're constantly making moves. I've said it for years. If you're staying still, if you're staying stagnant, your league mates are going to pass you by. It's a game of moves. You know, you have to make moves consistently in Dynasty.
You got to be playing chess when the other people are playing checkers.
Word to your brother.
Heyo. All right, next question, moving right along. John L. I'm actually going to alter his question a little bit because the original question is, at the end of the season, who do you think the number 1 player at each position will be? I'm assuming it's going to be the same as what we started this year. You know, that's why we have him ranked number 1.
Yeah.
So
Michael Thomas.
So let's say 3 years.
Kelce.
Let's say 3 years from now.
Patrick Mahomes. Boom, we're done.
Yep.
Let's say 3 years from now.
Okay. Project ahead.
Projecting ahead.
Each of us.
Who would you say is your top ranked player at each position?
Ooh, this is good. This is going to be good. Who wants to go? Garrett, you want to go first?
I don't, but I will.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Okay. All right. Matt's going first.
That was my running back for 3 years down the road, possibly. But I'm gonna switch mine. I'm gonna switch mine up.
It's gonna be George Kittle at tight end. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And wide receiver.
Wide receiver is tough.
The wide receiver is very tough.
That's the most difficult one for sure.
So let's get Patrick Mahomes out of the way because he's going to be the top there in 3 years.
Yeah, he's my top QB. He's all our top QB, right?
Absolutely.
I was almost going Baker, but
Pat Mahomes is still
Baker will probably win 3 Super Bowls over the next 3 years, so that's probably going to give him the edge.
So Mike Williams will be number 1. Clearly, I don't know why it took me that long to get to that. That's not who I actually think.
You want time to think about it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm going at running back Saquon Barkley. He still has a youth. He still has a talent. I think 3 years from now, he still has that like LT mold where he'll still be like running back 1 overall.
But 3 years from now, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to have a 90 catch season.
Probably.
Okay,
the first shot that popped in my head was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, by the way. But I'm going to go Saquon Barkley.
All right.
3 years from now, so 2024 is still like a little bit older, but still like running back 1, which is going to be hard to do. But I'm going to go Saquon there. Tight end, obviously George Kittle.
Right.
Anybody going to change from George Kittle?
Mark Andrews might be.
I would say Andrews is.
I'm gonna go.
But Kittle's so young; it would just be hard to see him be dethroned.
I would love to go like one of these rookie wide receivers, like a guy like CeeDee Lamb. But I'm gonna go outside the box here. I'm gonna go a young, talented receiver. I'm gonna go DJ Moore.
Okay, I don't hate that.
And you,
Mahomes at quarterback,
right?
And I think you have to go George Kittle. I have no problem if somebody said Mark Andrews. I think he'll be right in the same echelon. And I would not be shocked at all if TJ Hawkinson is up there as well. But for right now, I think the safe bet is George Kittle. At running,
He will be about 30 then. So he's going to be in that Travis Kelce kind of realm. But yeah, I think it's safe.
My first gut instinct was also Saquon. I think he's young enough. He's only going into his third year, so 3 seasons from now it'll only be his 5th. So it's probably Saquon. If not, I would take Jonathan Taylor, but I'm gonna go Saquon.
Well, he's dropping tons of balls in camp.
You saw one report that he dropped 4 balls over the course of camp.
Okay, that's enough for me. It's my biggest concern. What I say when my scouting report, Jonathan Taylor.
When Phillip Rivers checks it down 87 times,
my biggest concern is him in the passing game, and his drop rate in college was atrocious.
It's not going to matter.
Okay, it will matter. Is Derrick Henry your running back 1?
It's not the same guy.
It's going to matter.
Wide receiver is far and away the most difficult.
Yeah. That's why when DJ Moore just kind of he's a wide receiver 1 for me now. He's only 23 years old,
right?
So it's easy to see a guy entering at the 26-year age who dominates.
I think DJ Moore is a good candidate. I'm not sure with the quarterback situation there being so up in
tentative
the air.
Teddy.
Well,
tentative Teddy's not going to be the quarterback then.
Yeah,
So
maybe it's Trevor Lawrence,
right?
3 years.
It's probably it's going to be one of the.
It's going to be DJ Chark. Because he's going to get T-Law.
It very well could be DJ Chark.
Dude, DJ Chark's about to get a skyrocket. We're going to talk about him next.
It might be worth buying now.
There's so much
how it looks.
There's so much fallout from this Leonard Fournette trade to talk about in this next episode. I'm excited.
They've traded so many pieces.
So wait, who are your guys' receiver? It's easy to pick the running back. Saquon Barkley, Clyde Edwards, tight end. It's easy. The receiver is the biggest question mark to do.
I want to say A.J. Brown.
So do I.
I just don't know that the volume will ever be there for him to get that high.
I mean, you got to think obviously, Julio's out of the picture. Michael Thomas, by then Drew Brees is
31.
Drew Brees is gone, so he's on to another quarterback, so his situation's not as good. The one guy, Chris Godwin, is another guy that's
Godwin
out there
is
right
very
now.
interesting.
But Tom Brady's going to be gone, so who's going to be throwing him the ball as well? So, I mean, it really
Juju hasn't. He makes me really nervous. Age-wise, he's there, but
Juju's
get out of here.
Juju's nowhere close to being talented enough to be the number 1 guy, in my opinion. I'm left with Mike Williams and A.J. Brown, and between the two of them,
he said Juju's not talented enough. Mike Williams.
So I'm gonna go with my gut and go Mike Williams.
Nice, love it.
I'll stick with A.J. Brown.
I'll stick with DJ Moore, followed up by CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, CeeDee's a good pick. Rager, a lot of these guys.
I feel like him and Dak will be together then. Because what I'm thinking is, to be that number 1 receiver, you got to be about 26, 27.
Yep.
For the most part. To be number 1.
So it's really these rookies right now that we're looking at.
And anybody else is going to be too young to be number 1 yet, for the most part. So it's going to be right around that time frame. Before we go into our next question, Garrett, let's have a word from one of our sponsors. That's MyBookie. MyBookie is back. Winning season returns at MyBookie. When winning season means doubling your first deposit. Winning season means Survivor, Super Contest, and Squares. At MyBookie, winning season means hitting all your parlays and props with your feet up, watching your team trounce their rivals. Rejoice! It's time to celebrate the NFL season. Invest in your intuition. Use promo code NERDS and double your first deposit. Listen, when you're using these sites, the gamble, it's always good to find a site where you can double your deposit, right? Absolutely. You've been playing on these other sites, your competitors. You've been playing for a while. Guess what? You can't double your deposit. Well, at MyBookie, you can. Using that code NERDS and double your first deposit. New players get up to $1,000 in free play. Designed to add more excitement to the sport you love and the game you bet. From live betting to championship futures, every play you want to make is waiting at MyBookie. It's simple. Make your picks, win big, collect your cash. Use that promo code NERDS and double your first deposit. Your winning season begins today only at MyBookie. Yeah, you can play DFS and all those other things, but when you can bet futures about who's going to win the Super Bowl and get some odds, that's where you do it at MyBookie. Check them out today. Use that promo code NERDS and get some free cash. Matt, do you like free cash?
I love.
Garrett, you like free cash?
Give me that money.
I think free cash is okay. I'm just kidding. I love free cash. I'm using that promo code NERDS at MyBookie, and I'm getting all that extra cash in my pocket, and I'm putting all in the Browns to win AFC North, and I'm just going to double my free money.
Booyah.
Done and done.
It's probably good odds, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know what else I love?
Yeah.
Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash. Yeah.
There you go.
I like Johnny Cash covering Hurt by 9 Inch Nails.
That is a good one.
It's a very good one.
Yeah. I like all his music, though.
All right, here we go. Back to the questions. Bow Skin 111. That's his name. Peter B. Boskin 111. Boskin. All right. If you had to pick a team that could be a potential offensive powerhouse over the next 3 years, who would you pick? And this is outside of the obvious ones that we know. Listed were KC and New Orleans. I'm going to also throw in there, like, I think the Rams and probably Dallas would be out too.
This one's easy for me.
Kind of obvious.
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's a great pick.
Yeah, they just signed Joe Burrow to a contract extension. Joe Burrow, like we've been saying forever, is the truth, right? Even report on camps right now are saying he's better than they thought they would be. Now it's early and you want to pop up your quarterback, but to me, Joe Burrow is, we said in Superflex all along, these great quarterbacks are great and all, but Joe Burrow is easily the 1-1 in Superflex rookie drafts. So to me, Joe Burrow, they have Tyler Boyd there. Auden Tate's still a very solid number 3, and they bring in T. Higgins to go with Joe Mixon. And still plenty, all their draft picks to go forward to draft a really good tight end with a good draft class coming out next year for tight end. They add more weapons on this offense, a really deep receiving class next year. So they could potentially add another receiver to this, go along with A.J. Green. To me, the future powerhouse I can see developing here, because all future powerhouses have to start with one spot, and that's the quarterback. You can't have a powerhouse without a good quarterback, and that to me is Joe Burrow. And all the talent around him is young enough to keep that powerhouse momentum going. So my team is Cincinnati.
That's a great pick. That was my first gut as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the chalk one. Cincinnati, super easy. I'm just trying to buy time.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, go. No, I mean, I like teams like the 49ers. Is Jimmy Garoppolo that guy? That's what we're kind of trying to figure out. It starts with the
quarterback, man.
It starts with the quarterback, but it also, you have to look at who's calling plays and who's running the offense as well. So I mean, I love the Kyle Shanahan offense. It's a matter of time before they get an established running back in there, and then you have the running back. George Kittle is obviously a beast, and they have put in a lot of assets into their wide receiver core. And I do think once those guys get a little bit established, a couple of years down the line, that they could be a powerhouse as well.
So it feels unfair to say this, but I'm gonna go with the Browns. Like, we have a good quarterback in Baker Mayfield. Yes, he underperformed last year, but we know that just about anything that could go wrong did go wrong. You have all the reports about OBJ this year are, one, he shut his mouth, which has been a beautiful thing. He hasn't really said much at all this offseason. Supposedly looks great. You established that offensive line in the offseason, which was really the Achilles heel to all of this. You have some good tight ends, and you have literally probably the best backfield in the NFL with Hunt and Chubb. Like, there are a lot of pieces, and I didn't even mention Jarvis Landry, the guy that's been another guy that's been looking good in camp. Supposedly is Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I mean, there are a lot of pieces on this offense that I want in fantasy leagues.
That's why I don't think that's right. I think if you went around and you took a national poll, and I think just anyways, besides the Chiefs, if you went around and any dynasty player or fantasy player and say, hey, you can pick one team, you have all their players, I think the Browns would be the number 2 pick. Like,
I think Baltimore might be ahead of them.
It's okay. Then they're a third team for some people. I would pick the Browns number 2 overall, but I'm just saying, I think they're already there.
I think they are too, but I mean, we see where Baker's getting picked in a lot of leagues. Everybody's down on OBJ. Well, everybody's down on Nick Chubb because Kareem Hunt's there, so they don't want him. And like, literally all of the assets have been trending in the wrong direction. Everybody's worried about Hooper because Njoku's there. Like, I don't know. I think all of these assets are better values than they're being taken right now.
Well, you just laid it out though. There's uncertainty, and I think that's why they're going down, because there's another guy almost at every position that could be taking the ball away from him. They're just not sure who's going to be the established guy that's going to be the person getting all the targets or the person getting all the carries on a game-to-game basis. That could be changing, and for fantasy, that sucks, man. So I can see why. Outside of Baker Mayfield, all the other guys are slightly depressed in their value right now.
Sure.
Well, I got another team for you that might be a little shocking for Boskin.
Is it the Jets?
And if he was,
I know who it is right now.
If it was Dwight's brother, who's kind of Amish, to be Moskin.
You and me.
He's not circumcised.
I bet I can read your mind right now.
Okay,
I bet I know who it is. I'm gonna say the Denver Broncos.
100% not. It's the Miami Dolphins.
I thought about that one as well.
You bring in Tua. You have a young, athletic, high spark score tight end in Mike Gesicki. You got Preston Williams, Devontae Parker, who hasn't practiced in a while. But on top of that, they have a plethora of draft picks. Good, decent running backs coming out next year. Next year's draft class should be absolutely flooded with talent. So they have a lot of draft picks as well. So they can add some receivers. They got a good running back in here. Give a guy like Travis Etienne, Najee Harris. Chainwell just came out, right?
Kenneth
Gainwell, sorry, just came out here. So there's going to be a lot of talent there. I think Miami, it all starts with the quarterback, right? So if Tua can come out and be a solid quarterback, they're on the up. Denver's another good choice if Drew Lock can put together with how many weapons they have back out there. I think down the road, though, they're going to probably still address that running back situation.
Absolutely.
But besides that, yeah, of course, Denver could be one as well. And even
Oakland.
Yeah.
That was one that I was thinking about as well.
It just seems like these, the college classes just get, stronger and stronger when it comes to offensive weapons. So there's a lot of teams out there putting together, and then there's teams like the Jets not putting together whatsoever. But there's a lot of teams putting like nice young cores that you're really intrigued with. Like the Broncos are one of those teams. Like, okay, I'll take all those guys. I'll take all their receivers. I'll take their tight end. I'll take their, the one you would probably the biggest question mark is the quarterback.
Absolutely.
So
right.
Next question, Garrett.
All right, from Dr. Taters. 192. Are you fading 21 picks since there is so much unknown? Or are you trying to gain and accumulate as much as possible?
Yeah, I work out for gains.
Richard, right. You're trying to get some gains on those taters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure. The
bigger the taters, the better.
The bigger
he's
taters,
a doctor. Show him some respect.
The better.
Okay, Doc.
Dr. Taters.
Give me my prescription. That's more draft picks, son. 21. This draft class is going to be loaded. I mean, look at these receivers in here. Look at these receivers.
And if you can
these running backs, these tight ends, these quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence is one of the best quarterback prospects since Andrew Luck.
If you can use the uncertainty of this whole thing in order to get more draft picks, because people in your league are nervous and they don't want to do the necessary homework to draft next year, then absolutely take advantage of that. Get some unload some old guys for some draft picks and get yourself a nice little come.
I could use a pressure for you right now. Just get on the DynastyNerds.com, get in the Dynasty Nerds film room. We have tape on every one of these rookies coming out. We just had 10 more films uploaded today.
Yep.
Trevor Lawrence versus Ohio State. We have some good film, and we officially opened up the film room again. We're going to be pumping out film in there every day.
Yep.
Every day there's new film that gets into the Dynasty Nerds film room. So even though there's not going to be a lot of Dynasty film or a lot of college games played on tape, we're going to have all of their last year games, including anybody who plays this year, on tape in the Dynasty Nerds film room. We might even go above and beyond where most of the average players get about 4 games. The good players give about 7. We might go up to 6 for even just the average guys to make sure we have enough film in there for this year to make that exception for the rules. So, yeah, I'm excited about the Dynasty Nerds film room to get you prepared. And we will be doing our study as well. So you'll have the Dynasty Nerds film room, and of course you have our podcast and other podcasts as well to help you get ready. So just because they're not playing enough games, do not use that as an excuse that this next year's class isn't just as talented as this year's class.
Well, and even our film nerd show, I mean, we'll literally be teaching you how to break down film on these guys. So, I mean, there's not going to be any excuses to not be well informed about this class. And even today, I mean, there's now the latest reports, and it was by Peter King, or it was somebody well known like that, Rich Eisen. Somebody said that they're strongly looking at potentially October 10th. That the Big Ten now plays football again.
Nice.
Yeah,
So
well, if everybody else is doing it, they're not going to do it.
It's all over the place with all this, but I'm not fading any one of these guys. And if anything, you might get some great players at the end of your drafts this year, just because there'll be guys that maybe didn't get a chance as much, or their season got canceled, so we won't get to see them, blah blah blah, and people won't know about them as much. And you could find some really really great gems in the second, third rounds of this year's draft.
Yeah, people that put the time in this year will be coming away from the draft picks that don't listen to podcasts, that don't put the time in, really, really rewarded.
Yep.
Next question.
All right. Next question here. Let's see. Oh, shoot. I missed the one. Oh, okay. This is from Kyle Valors. Kyle Valors asks, from each division, who is a second or third year wide receiver that are poised to break out this season?
From each division? Is that
From each division. Now,
That's going to be hard to do off the top of my head.
we don't necessarily have to go, but give us some names of some second and third year guys that you think are poised to really break out this year.
J-Jaw, was the guy that obviously he's getting a big time opportunity, especially early in the season here.
JJ Arcega-Whiteside for the Eagles.
Sorry, yes, JJ Arcega-Whiteside. With Rhaegar going down here with a shoulder injury early on, obviously Alshon Jeffrey's most likely going to miss, probably the first month of the season at least.
Yeah.
It's going to be basically him and Deshaun Jackson for as long as he can hold up in the starting lineup there. So he's going to be the one that jumps right off the page at me as a second-year guy that could have a potential breakout.
I still really like James Washington. I know that there's a lot of wide receivers in Pittsburgh, but there's been some good reports in camp, and he's kind of the overlooked guy because Juju's the big name. Deontay Johnson's the new hotness, and they drafted Chase Claypool. And so I get it. There's a lot of guys, but James Washington was actually quietly their most productive wide receiver last year.
He led the team in at least receiving yards.
Yards, I believe.
It was just yards, not Deontay Johnson had more receptions. So I think we're about James Washington because I love him. Loved him coming to Oklahoma State. Obviously, Matt, we talked him up pretty good. It's just there's a lot of talk coming out of Pittsburgh that Mike Tomlin loves Chase Claypool.
Sure.
Loves it. And they're making sure he's going to get on the field. So, somebody's going to suffer here.
But the thing is, they play such different roles. Claypool's going to be used a lot in the red zone. James Washington's more of that deep threat guy, which you're not going to see as much out of Deontay Johnson or even Juju. I think that's what's going to make him different from those other three is he's going to be able to make those big plays downfield.
And that is his role. For a guy that's only, 5'10", 5'11", he is a contested catch guy as well. So he gets downfield. He can make the big time catches where he's jumping over people, and he has a great my ball mentality. So yeah, James Washington, very excited, I guess.
Yeah, I look for Paris Campbell for the Colts to take a big step forward this year. Maybe finish this year as a high end wide receiver 3. Essentially, but start making those steps forward to be an established receiver.
He was having a nice camp also until he got in a car accident and missed some time with a little bit of a concussion. So
Anthony Miller for the Bears, former Memphis wide receiver. I can see his established route running with no really set other receiving option besides, honestly, Tariq Cohen out of the backfield because Jimmy Graham is not really going to get done. If Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles can get it going there in Chicago, I see him taking a step forward as well.
He worries me a little bit just in the fact that I feel like they're going to be ping-ponging between quarterbacks for much of the season. So I'm just not sure how much of a flow there is going to be in that offense that it's going to be able to sustain two guys.
One guy whose value has really, really tanked, and it's hilarious because he's so good, is Debo Samuel. Right now, nobody's talking about Debo because he got hurt, but reports are he's running, he's moving. There's a chance he could be ready for week 1, and now Ayuk's hurt.
Right.
Let's not forget how much of a man he was in the playoffs last year. And there's really no other wide receiver like Kendrick Bourne. There's really nobody else. So it's going to be Kittle, and I think it's still going to be Debo. And right now the price is very depressed compared to A.J. Brown, DK, Terry McLaurin. It's much lower than those guys at the moment.
Well, I feel like his value is not depressed at all. In my eyes, personally, and
I want him, but I'm saying in the general community, I'm seeing him go really late in drafts.
Oh, if that's the case, go put some offers out for Debo Samuel right away. That Debo's absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
That guy to me is
he's a stud, man.
He's a stud
in the waiting, absolutely.
Yeah, If that's the truth right now, ADP, I guess I haven't checked in on Debo for a while. I would see who the owner is, and I would definitely put some offers on there. I would give up my 21 first and my 21 second for Debo. And that's a strong class next year. I'd have no problem doing that whatsoever. He's that talented. And that offense to be the number 1 receiver from a fantasy perspective, I like Ayuk, what he can do, but I think Ayuk's be a little bit more situational, kind of think of a Will Fuller role kind of maybe in Houston if healthy, which is solid, but more of a roller coaster. I think Debo Samuel is going to be the fantasy asset you want to own at, besides George Kittle in San Francisco. Put an offer in.
All right. How many more do we got time for?
We got about 5 minutes.
All right. We'll do this one last one because I think this is an interesting question. From Pistol Pete 026. What is the best way to target running backs when you are wide receiver heavy without having to overpay when no one is willing to trade RBs away? Do you try to add extra rookie picks to sweeten the deal more than you normally would?
Well, if nobody's willing to give up a running back, you're going to have to overpay. If you need a running back and nobody's selling, you have to make them sell. You don't have to overpay.
Yeah, I mean this goes back to what I said earlier in the podcast about when you're there, when you're knocking on the door and you're ready to actually contend, and that's something you have to be you got to be honest with yourself. You know, if you're just wide receiver heavy and you just want to have a running back to fill out your starting lineup and have it look good, but you're still kind of weak at tight end and quarterback, it wouldn't make sense to overpay. But if you're knocking on heaven's door and it's really just the running back, that one running back, then yeah, you sell one of your assets that you have extra of, and you're going to have to sweeten the deal and overpay to make your starting lineup better and actually contend.
For me, with this specific question, I'm probably, if it's a league that, and most leagues do, heavily value their running backs, don't want to trade them away unless they're getting, king's ransom for them, then don't trade for the running backs. Go trade for rookie picks that you think are going to be in the top 6 of next year's class. Like, that's the type of moves, because I think you have a better shot of getting somewhat closer to equal value than you will like saying, okay, I'm going to trade you for Jonathan Taylor. Okay, then you're going to have to give me, A.J. Brown and a first-round pick, and that's going to be tough to do.
No, that is tough to do, but if he's ready to compete this year, that strategy, obviously
it doesn't
isn't going to help.
say if he's ready to or not.
See, I think it's more about just being smart, and like I said, everyone wants to go for those splashy trades, like the Joe Mixons, the Miles Sanders. Like, just be smart about who you go after. Like, I'm going to a guy who's still really good, but the value's still viable.
Tariq
a guy
Cohen.
like Austin Eckler.
No, what about? If you're in desperate need, a guy like Matt Breida.
We've talked about him before,
Right.
yeah. And you don't have to give up any good receiver for Matt Breida. You can give him for probably a decent high second-round pick.
Sure.
Or just a second-round pick and a third-round. A second. If you're desperate to overpay, pay with something that's not overly costly. Like, hey, I'll give you Matt Breida. What do you want? A second? Okay, I'll give you a second and a third. Oh, okay, I'll take that. Is it maybe a slight overpay? Yeah, but you have some upside there. Guys that maybe you see their role early. Again, I'm telling you, man. I'm still in on Jerick McKinnon. All reports out of San Francisco every week is he.
So you wouldn't trade for
absolutely
Cohen,
dynamic.
but you would trade for Mixon?
Yeah, I like McKinnon more than Cohen. To be honest with you.
McKinnon, okay.
Yeah. If I'm being honest,
I think Cohen's a great buy in
he's
this
a
situation.
no, he's a good buy too. I'm not saying he's not, but I'm going down the ship, so I'm going
Okay.
out with my flames.
I would rather if I have good wide receivers, I want a guy that I know for sure is going to get have a good floor. And that's where Breida and McKinnon, I don't think.
Okay, but we're just saying we're not going to. Now, if you're just strictly going good wide receiver, right? So let's say a team that's absolutely loaded. Say his fourth wide receiver is A.J. Brown. Let's just say that. So you have A.J. Brown as an asset here. Who are you going after? I'm going after a guy like Austin Eckler, right? Just signed a long-term contract, so I have the safety net of his contract as my safety net, where I know I'm going to get at least probably 2 years out of Eckler. I know he's very viable in the passing game. So even if he fails in the running game, I know for a fact that he's viable in the passing game, and just in the passing game that he could be a running back one. This is a guy who did it 2 years ago with Melvin Gordon on the roster. He was still giving you running back one numbers as a number 2. Last year, beginning of the season, he was a top 3 running back going into it. Even with Melvin Gordon back, he still came into the league. He was very viable for that. So I think a guy like Austin Eckler's in there. I think a guy like Nick Chubb is, you're flirting with that range with an A.J. Brown, is somebody who's not more viable in the PPR game, but really solid in their ground game. I think you might be able to make a move for a guy like A.J. Brown if you throw a little bit on top for a guy like Nick Chubb. You probably get a guy like Kenyon Drake if you want to gamble, right, for an A.J. Brown straight up. Do you lose that trade? Yes, slightly, but if Kenyon Drake re-signs in Arizona, that trade looks way more fair and equal now for Kenyon Drake with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins for A.J. Brown. So it's just about being realistic about who you can get, right? Mm-hmm. And being okay with taking that mild loss in the trade. You just trade A.J. Brown for an Austin Eckler? What are you doing? That guy's young and talented. You can't give up a future wide receiver one, Matt's future wide receiver one overall for a guy like Austin Eckler. It's like, yeah, dude, I'm trying. Again, it goes back to one thing. What are we trying to do? We're trying to win, not win trades. We're trying to win championships. Right. That's what I'm trying to do.
All right.
So that's it. Those are thanks for the question. Sorry if we didn't get to your question.
Oh, yeah. There was another 40 questions that we just didn't get a chance to get to.
Next week, we will be back with our bold prediction episode. We're going to go double dip here. Maybe still do some more camp news in the second episode because it doesn't stop. So it depends how, we might do a couple more into the nerd episode. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, we got one more week until the season's here. Next Thursday, it's the season.
Unbelievable.
Next Thursday.
So a little over a week away.
Houston and Kansas City.
So that'll be a good matchup, too.
It's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, I cannot wait. In the meantime, let's make sure your rosters are ready to go. Your teams are set. Maybe make some trades here. Keep watching this preseason. Preseason news can get you some good trades. Make sure you join the Nerd Herd. Never better time than join the Nerd. And if you don't want to join the Nerd, sign up for the Dynasty GM tool. But right now, we're giving everybody an opportunity. You don't even have to sign up for the Dynasty GM and pay for it. We have it right now. It's a free trial. All you have to do is sign up. You get a free 3-day trial to try out the Dynasty GM. We've now taken away, doesn't matter what platform you use, you can import your team. You can import your entire league in 10 minutes on the Dynasty GM. It's that easy to import your league manually. Flea Flicker will be up this week, so it'll automatically import Flea Flicker. We got MFL and Sleeper on there right now. Of course, those are our two favorite platforms. Sleeper is the best, probably one of the best free,
yep,
platforms, them and Flea Flicker. And of course, My Fantasy League is the best hosting platform you could possibly get right now, but it's a paid platform. But it's my favorite platform is myfantasyleague.com. The Dynasty GM will not only get you ready for the season, it will carry you through the season, then and beyond. Always know where your team stands. The win now rankings are coming by the time the season starts as well. Dynasty Nerds right now has everything you need, not only to better your team, but to dominate your league as well. The Dynasty GM, the Nerd Score, the Dynasty Nerd Film Room. We're taking care of you today, tomorrow, and years down the road, which is what Dynasty Fantasy Football is. So get on dynastynerds.com today. Check it out. Check out the store. Buy some cool Dynasty Nerds gear. That shirt Matt's wearing right now is absolutely fantastic. You're going to get so many high fives walking out the store, even though it's late at night. Just control yourself over there, okay? Control yourself.
Control yourself.
You control yourself.
COVID is going on.
You're being ridiculous.
Quit trying to high-five me all over the place, people.
Yeah, that's true. Check out the Dynasty Nerds YouTube channel. We got some more shows in the plan here. This show itself will be coming here soon. Once we get the studio done here, we got to get this desk built.
Yeah, it's on the way.
Look good, feel good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
feel
much
good,
coming.
play good.
Little over a week away.
So
we
look
got
good,
real
play
games
good?
going.
Yeah, look good, feel good, play good.
In the meantime, you want to talk Dynasty Fantasy Football? I'm on Twitter at Dynasty Rich.
I'm at Dynasty Matt.
At Dynasty Bryce.
If you live in the Cleveland area, I'll be on Fox Sports Ohio tonight. My TV show is coming back officially today. I'll be on TV. See how ugly I
Back,
am.
baby.
Yeah. I'll be talking sleepers tonight.
Nice.
Yeah.
Don't be falling to sleepers.
Don't do that. That's silly. Great play on words.
Thank you. Adios.